So hello, my name is Karolina and I'll be your host today. Welcome to the second session of an online series called Crash Course: How to Manage Risks, Web Products and Software Teams in Recession. The course consists of 3 online sessions, and this is the second session. Today we'll be talking about risk management in software and digital product development. This course is led by true practitioners, experts in different aspects of software development, people who lead the development teams every day and manage risks every day. We hope that within this 1 hour, they'll be able to pass you on some very applicable knowledge to help you navigate through these special situations we are here at the moment, give you some truly agile strategies to navigate those complex circumstances. So throughout this course, we'll email you some additional materials, such as the recording from this webinar, and also some additional handouts. We'll also give you a special limited access to a resource page with all webinar materials, so watch out for your inbox. The website should be available for you this week, and this webinar is hosted by Boldare. Boldare is a digital product design and development company with over 15 years of experience. We have 140 employees who have developed over 250 web and mobile applications for over 100 clients. And we hope to bring you today some practical advice, knowledge supported by real-life case studies and some actionable methodologies and frameworks we've learned on the way. You can find out more about us on our website, boldare.com. You can also comment live on the webinar via Twitter, mentioning our Twitter handle @boldare.com. Now, let me introduce you to our today's speakers. Today we welcome Beata Sumera, Head of Product Design and Development at Boldare, Jarosław Kroczek, Chief Technology Officer at Boldare, Romuald Członkowski, Product Development Lead here at Boldare, and our very special guest, Allan Wilson, founder of CRS, Community Response System. They will share with you some key insights on risk management in software development. And if you have any questions for them, please post them on the tab on your right-hand side during the webinar. We'll have a live Q&A session at the end. We'll answer all your questions, hopefully. But if there will be a lot of them, please vote for the ones that are most interesting for you. Also, if you find that you wish to speak to them directly, you can always email us at hello@boldare.com. So please feel free to do that. Now, Romuald, over to you.
Thank you, Karolina, for this introduction. Let's get started, the main part of this webinar. During the previous webinar, we were talking about strategies in crisis on a higher level, and also about some typical risks in product development. Today, we will deep dive into specific risks that are very likely to occur during the time of crisis with remote work environment that we are facing now. We will provide you with real-life examples and tools that will help you to deal with them. So let's get started and look at the 6 risks we see currently, one by one. Beata, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Romek. Let me just turn on the presentation again. Okay, so let's talk about our first risk. This is an in-house development team that suddenly is unable to work, and this risk might seem quite obvious, but situations when it happens are not only negative to your business. Sometimes our business struggles with the difficulties, is challenged in many ways, but in other times we also come across some promising opportunities. And in such a situation was one of our clients who had an in-house development team of 5 software engineers. and one external development team of the same size. And because of the opportunity, they could increase their market share for a short time, but the time to market was crucial to start with this opportunity. And to make it possible, the software development department had to scale from 20 to 100 people in less than 2 months. You can imagine that, of course, lots of major risks or issues appeared and had to be solved. The most important thing to focus on business value and to have an efficient delivery process. That means that you need to keep the goal consistent with everyone involved. You have to make it all going in a dynamic and scaled environment. This is clearly a challenge. Also, to take a look at the communication, which is the key in beneficial cooperation, though the complexity increases here with the number of people involved.
Beata, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you please try to share your presentation once again, because we might have some technical difficulties seeing it. So,
sure, let's check it again.
Yeah, perfect. It's working now. Thank you.
Stop me if it doesn't work again. Okay, so to continue, to build the best product, it is also very important to keep the knowledge sharing regarding business and technical aspects. And the challenge is how to do this easy, how to make it all on time as needed. And the last point is that we have lots of problems that we need to solve that are on different levels, detailed or general, and the time is limited. So it is very necessary to be able not only to prioritize those problems to solve, but to identify them first. To show you how we approached the risk and the issues, we created a product-driven environment that is based on business, technicalities, and people aspects. And it is all combined and managed by well-adjusted processes. To get into details, while you choose the Scrum framework to focus on the business value, one of the solutions in scaled environment is to form Scrum teams based on business domain, which is important that it's not the technical domain. This way, you can have your digital product development business-oriented, and you can be sure that each team keeps the right focus and stays efficient. To keep the entire ecosystem efficient for time-to-market benefits, you could apply the basics of a scaled Scrum framework, such as Nexus. It is a ready-to-take solution that solves common cooperation and communication problems. It also tells you how to coordinate the teams working together. What is also important is to invest in cross-team business and technical knowledge sharing by introducing, for example, chapter structures or regular events for all of the teams that team may contribute, such as planning sessions or product reviews. What is also very important is to keep teaching people to self-organize within the teams. As it is known, the people management is very time-consuming. It is quite impossible also to scale, while self-organizing teams can easily teach other teams to learn by their example. To summarize this risk, in all that you do when approaching a scaled software development environment, it's worth making little steps. An external team inspecting the situation is the most efficient way to indicate the right problems, no matter if detailed or general. And the team should also support the continuous transformation. It doesn't matter if you grow with your own employees or cooperate with external companies. What you should focus on is to build a partnership based on trust. because that creates product-driven environment with no company barriers. In this moment, I just would like to say that if you're interested in working with scaled environment, but including distributed teams, I'd like to invite you to our next webinar where you can learn more about it. And right now, I will share the presentation with Romuald.
Okay, let me take over. Presentation first. I hope you can see that now. Okay. The risk of remote working. One thing is when your team suddenly cannot work all together, but what if they can work, but have to do it remotely, entirely, suddenly? There are two sides of remote working. One aspect is development teams from one company working remotely. This may be, for example, your in-house team that used to work in one room or in one open space. Now they have to coordinate and communicate from homes, for example. The other aspect is building digital products remotely, especially with external partners or subcontractors. The fact that they are dealing with, we are dealing with two organizations with different processes, methods, and even business models is challenging even without the pandemics, without the crisis situation we are facing now. So how to deal with those additional risks? Surely, most of the participants today are facing remote work in at least one of those aspects. Something we should think about when moving teams to full remote is security risks. Everybody will be working from home. So what should be our concern here? Well, to protect our digital assets, you're going to need VPNs or other forms of secure access. So first one is security of communication. But don't forget also about physical threats to your infrastructure. Somebody can steal an unencrypted laptop that was lying around somewhere. Make sure that all the laptops and other USB sticks, whatever you use, are encrypted and passwords are strong. Sometimes we, out of laziness, use the very simple passwords, and that's not the best practice. Please make sure they are more or less random. Now, the second thing is infrastructure capacity. Not everyone needs access to all the systems all the time, but most of them do for some time. VPN workloads will surge. Also, video conferencing systems can be a bottleneck. Cloud-based solutions seem to work better now than the on-site ones, thanks to scalability potential. So these basic risks are emerging from infrastructure, from tools we use. But what we should think about is risks that emerge in a situation when people were used to work together face-to-face and suddenly need to go online. Some emerging concerns here includes very basic questions. Will people even show up at work if we don't have them here on site in the office? Will the performance drop? Will the communication be efficient? How to deal with that? Managing distributed software development teams will be a topic of the next webinar, number 3. So we won't go into very much details here. If you're developing your product in-house with help of in-house teams, the next webinar will be very, very valuable to you. So make sure to check that. But I don't want to leave you with nothing today on this topic. So here are just some quick tips for you. First and most important, applications to communicate and collaborate online must be there, or a must-have in these days. Just to name a few and to give you some tips: Slack and Google Meet for instant communication, and forget about emails. These are too slow and too consuming to actually go through. You need some instant communication. G Suite for collaboration on documents. Boldare for brainstorming. This is our proprietary, free-to-use application. I encourage you to check it out. Asana for organizational project management, Jira for software development projects. Then we also use Confluence for knowledge sharing and Miro for building diagrams together with other people, sketching online, etc. So the tools you used in the office, make sure you have some online equivalent. But simply having the tools is not enough. You have to introduce principles and best practices adequate to distributed teams. For example, you can write down best practices of using Slack, video calls etiquette, keep all your actions transparent and transparent so that everybody can see what everybody else is doing. Make your work visible. From our experience, radical transparency works best here, as opposed to, well, a person working alone without anybody knowing what's going on for the past 3 days. Also, try to remain with your colleagues in constant communication where the collaboration is needed. Keep the Slack open all the time. Use quick video calls if high bandwidth communication is needed. I would say try to create a co-located feeling online. For example, you can have a link with a video call open all the time when people just can drop in, have coffee, just like in the office. Also, make sure that everybody says hello on Slack in the morning and says goodbye at the end of the day. As I said, more on managing distributed software teams in the next webinar, so make sure not to miss that. And now we will tackle the second side of this risk. So developing digital products remotely with external partners. So it's more of B2B communication. And here we will use a case study of Boldare, and also later on ask for Allan's perspective in a bit. Majority of our clients are from outside Poland, so we have experience in cooperating remotely with them. Our teams have been mixed teams. Some of team members co-located in one office, and some of the team members working from home. And since the remote cooperation between us and our clients didn't change much, well, this part didn't change, but what changed is us working 100% remotely, and we had to make sure that the team's performance is up to standards. Before the outbreak, we worked primarily from offices with some options working remotely, and as I mentioned, now we are fully remote. Okay, here are the 6 risks, or in other words, challenges of developing digital products remotely, and how we deal with them. A lack of shared understanding. Well, what it means, it's an obvious fundamental that any team working on a product should agree on what the product should be, what it is, and what it will be not. Won't be. All right, it's a common vision. And a SourceSeek survey found that in outsourced software development projects, 32% say unclear goals is the biggest hurdle or barrier to success. So how to avoid this risk? Well, our advice is begin every software development project with a product discovery workshop or any other workshop that fits this particular project. This meeting should be attended by the whole Scrum team, the developers, the product designers, the quality assurance experts, Scrum Master, and, well, very, very important point, product owner from the client side. Okay, and poor communication. Well, this challenge is rather obvious, but there are, well, 2 things that are specific to software development outsourcing. It's different organizational structures or different organizational cultures of the 2 companies, different chains of command, and the other one is geographical distance. Solution to the first, again, radical transparency of the development team. The product owner should have direct access to each developer, no proxies, no project managers, also full visibility of communication channels, so everybody sees what everybody is saying, daily slots for video communication if needed. That's the solution we see. And well, solution to the second, of course, common language, English, but it's not obvious in all the cases. And then look for opportunities to bridge the time difference. If it's, for example, US and Poland we are talking about, so we can find common working slots or shift working hours to match those of the client. Concerning incompatible methodologies, it's not uncommon for our clients to not know Scrum, how it works and what are the principles, and lean more towards waterfall methodology. After all, you don't have to be an expert in software development methodology, so that's all right. But you can rest assured that if you have agile mindset, understand how Scrum works, and working Scrum won't be a problem. It's different than waterfall, of course, but in the long run, it allows you to develop the product you really need, instead of developing the product you thought you needed at the very beginning. That's the very important distinction between those two. The next one is in a flexible mindset, and that leads to another concern. Inflexible mindset in your partner, development partner. Maybe your priorities shift during the development, like in the middle of it, for example, there is a COVID-19 pandemic or another crisis. If you stick to the initial plan, if you stick to agreement with defined scope, you are doomed basically in such a situation. And I hate to repeat myself, but flexibility is in the DNA of Scrum. After each sprint, the team asks not only a question, are we on track with the plan, but what's more important, the team asks themselves the question, will this product still be useful? Will this product still fulfill the business need? And if not, the team can pivot and respond to change almost immediately. It's not immediate, but it's almost immediately, because the sprints are usually 1 to 2 weeks long. The next one, ensuring product quality. If you are developing your product remotely, especially with a partner from different country, different culture, quality can be a concern. After all, it's not an in-house dev team that you have full control of course. But there is a solution: a regular and close communication, and review the product increment every sprint. Be part of the team, be responsive, dedicate your time to development, to giving feedback, and if something is not working, you can correct as well almost immediately. In our projects, we also have a dedicated quality assurance specialist responsible for rigorous testing. So that's another, let's say, brick there in this wall to make sure quality is on the right level. Well, the last one, unhealthy dependency. It may happen that if you are working with so-called experts, you become very dependent on them. Be careful not to fall into something called vendor lock-in. Make sure you work with a company that ensures knowledge transfer, that is passing to your team, your internal team, knowledge about technologies that were used, processes that were used, along with the source code, of course. Make sure you don't get a black box that basically does what you want it to do, but in the end you cannot introduce any changes yourself. Okay, that's enough from me now. Let's hear Allan and his experience with developing a digital product with a remote team. Allan, can you please introduce what CRS is doing?
For having us. CRS Notify is a technology-based panic button system that lets employees that are in crisis let others know that they need help quickly and communicate through that crisis event. We've had a great success working with Boldare, and a lot of the things that you brought up has helped us along a lot.
Yeah. So, Allan, question: what was the situation at your company when you were looking for external partner, and why actually you were looking for a partner?
One of the biggest things we were looking for is we used an internal team the first time, and we had the problem that you ran into with lock-in, where we were heavily dependent upon that internal team, and it was a small enough size to where if somebody was out, whether they left the team or maybe left on vacation, we were very dependent upon them. The whole project could stop or get paused, and it was inflexible. So when we first wanted to start with Boldare, we found out pretty quickly that we had to increase the timeline. And by working through Boldare, we were able to reduce our timeline quickly. Where if we'd tried to do that internally, there's no way we could have gotten up to speed fast enough. So it's been a blessing.
All right. Let me ask you and show here the risks I just talked about. Did you have similar concerns, or did you saw that before you set off to look for a partner? Did you have?
Definitely. I was kind of nodding my head through when you were talking about that because we ran into quite a few of those. One of the things that I was really most impressed with was that lack of understanding. So you did a project discovery workshop at the beginning of the project, and each phase we kind of do that product discovery workshop, and that in the beginning I didn't really fully understand how important that was. And it's great because it lets me as the product owner talk directly to the team and lets them ask questions of what our intentions are, of what we're trying to go to, so that they can help give us something to kind of match up. And so that product discovery workshop was really a key component to us having good success, I feel like. So
it helped to forge the understanding of your goals by the team, right?
I believe so. Yes. One of the other things that I really have enjoyed, we've used Slack a little bit before we were exposed to it, and used it with our teams a little bit internally. But because of the remote team working with Boldare and our internal teams, we've implemented it more. And I love how everybody says everything inside of a common channel so that everyone can see what's going on. So let's say we have a product request or a question for clarification, and that needs another team member's input. They can automatically jump in and assist with that. And I really, now that there's so much transparency with that, I can't see doing it another way. And that's really helped us to minimize some of the communication problems I think there would have been without that.
Okay, so the poor communication concern was addressed by Slack communication and transparency. Were there any other elements of cooperation that you could put in this category, communication? What other tools were used?
Yeah, we really enjoyed line up the project, and so we would go through that product discovery phase and talk about that, and line the tools up inside of there. And it helped us to see what we were focusing on with this phase, and communicate kind of throughout that process about what we'd set up in that discovery phase. And I think that really helped to keep everybody focused and moving in the right direction, same direction.
Okay, Allan, so another question is, how did the cooperation with remote team look like? The process from the beginning to the end? How did it look like? Maybe in your own words.
Yeah, from our side, we would do the product discovery workshop for each phase, and so that the total project was kind of broken into each sprint. We did the product discovery workshop at the beginning, and from there that got moved into Jira as the points that we were looking for, and then everybody went to work. We established kind of a time frame, which is a short period of time. Sprints are usually a week to 2 weeks. And then we used Slack to communicate, and occasionally would intersperse that with Google Video Hangouts if we needed to deep dive into something that we ran into. And then there would be a wrap up at the end to make sure that we were happy with where the endpoint was.
Okay, and in terms of the product, when did you see the first version, or how it changed when you were involved in the product itself?
You mean kind of how long did it take us to get to completion of the first project?
Yeah, and what did you see after the first phase, let's say?
I think that was one of the things that we were most impressed with. We ended up having to compress our kind of time frame for our first version release. We were able to see something within weeks, which was really nice. When you're working with a new company and a new team, there was a lot of fear, probably is the right way to say it, to make sure that you've got a right fit and that they understand what you're looking for. And because we were able to see something so quickly, that made us more comfortable working with Boldare, and that we were moving in the right direction together. And so we saw things within weeks, and the entire phase of that project was able to get done in a very short period of time.
All right. Thank you, Allan, for now. And that's it. That concludes this risk. And I'm happy to give the stage to Beata.
Thank you. So let me just share the screen again. Hopefully it works this time. Okay, so the third of the risks that we wanted to share with you today is the management suddenly being unable to work. Let me just talk about another case from our experience. In one of our clients' Scrum teams, we faced a situation where the product owner was unable to work for a 1.5 month period of time. And it was because of a sudden sick leave. So it might happen to all of us. And as usual, sick leave is quite unexpected. And most of the teams would be paralyzed with the situation when such an important person is gone. They start asking questions of what to do, and they have no one to answer. So our key solution that we applied there is that you should invest in the right management style. And the right management style, I mean, is followed by the vision that the best manager is the one that becomes obsolete. Because of this approach, the team delivered new product increments during the absence of the product owner, and client's business gained the opportunity to constantly grow as it was planned. To get into details, the entire team had the product discovery workshop already mentioned today. And because of the workshop, they could understand the product vision and goals. They could make their own best decisions during the process. with not only technical but also business aspects. So the conclusion here is that you should avoid being the only decision maker in the team. Also, the team worked with a high-level roadmap and product release strategy. This way, they followed the right direction towards product goals and delivered what was expected, even in this situation. It was quite normal for the team that the product owner gave the team the regular access to stakeholders, and they also performed user testing. So still, in the time of product owner's absence, the team kept going with these actions, and they had the opportunity to adjust to the changing situation, and it was based on real data. And to tell you about the last but not least thing to invest in, the team was constantly self-organizing, and they improved in self-organizing all the time. And because of that, they faced the problematic situation quite quickly and efficiently, and they were not paralyzed at all. To summarize how to deal with this risk, with each tool or process that you introduce, the examples that I have already mentioned, you should focus on how to empower your team and distribute the authority. With this approach, you will become bulletproof to the risk, and even when your key people are unavailable, you will be able to follow with the goals and achieve them. So to get back to Allan right now, Allan, you have already talked a little bit about the product discovery workshop, but could you please tell me some details on how did it help you to share the product vision? How did it help to share your business needs to the team?
It was really, I didn't understand in the very beginning how important it was going to be to get what we do across so clearly to the developers. And so we were bringing in a completely outside entity into our company and letting them know about why we created this product, what we were looking for the product to accomplish, what needs was it helping our customers with, and why were we doing this project to begin with, what changed from the current version we were on into this new version we were going to. And we were able to walk through that in that product discovery workshop so that everybody understood and was aligned with what we were trying to accomplish, and got that team buy-in that kind of helped everybody to understand and be connected together.
Thank you. Did the product discovery workshop helped you as well to dig into the product?
For sure. They brought up questions that I had not even thought about yet. They brought in outside opinions about different ways to accomplish things. That was really powerful. And they challenged some of the ways that our team was thinking about what we wanted out of the product, which helped us to end up with a much better product than what we were originally imagining.
Thank you. Just one more question. During the process of development, how do you find the team support for your product owner role? Did they understand your needs? Did they help you to do your own job during the process?
Yes, it really was nice from my standpoint. When I am using my internal team, there's a little bit more that we're a constant dialogue side of things. Whenever I used the distributed team with Boldare and the product that we were working on, it seemed like they understood that I was providing the vision and that they were trying to get to that vision. And so there was much less friction. It kind of is the way that I felt it. And it was more that I got to stay in my role of saying what I was seeing and what we felt like we needed to move towards. And they kind of were able to stay in their role of helping us to implement that. And it was just, from my side of things, a much more pleasant experience.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. So thank you, Allan, for now. I guess we'll get back to you again. And right now, let's go to the next risk. And Jarosław, now it's your turn.
Yes, hello everyone. Just let me share the presentation. Okay, I hope you can see the presentation now. Okay, so let's explore another risk, which is shrinking market. Well, today, just for a context, just 3 months ago, we used to say that we live in a VUCA world, and today, as we see the pandemic, the whole economy shifts to digital in a pace that was never seen before. Today, some services and products become just inadequate one day, while other new opportunities emerge, and chances for building new products and reaching new markets is very clear. So the question actually two major questions come: how to survive, or how to use the opportunities. Basically, response to a shrinking market is by quick adaptation, but it might not be in a pace that we used to do months ago. Today we need to proceed much faster, and you might having your business or maintaining your digital products, or having ideas how to provide new products to the market. You might be asking yourself questions: how do you update your product or create your new product so quickly but with minimum resources? How do you find and validate new business or product ideas if you feel that you have some? Are you alone in thinking? Is it possible to find a business partner in creative thinking, not only in execution? And how to minimize costs of investing in digital products if you're unsure if it's needed or adequate? So these are the questions that we might be asking ourselves today. And in terms of creating digital products, I think I should mention 3 concepts. First is the agile product development. Why this is important? Agile product development is focused on priority to satisfy customers, to satisfy business, while having that agility to change the direction and to deliver in high pace. So only the agile development teams are able to execute and deliver in a pace that is really needed today. The second concept is the lean startup. This was the concept that was introduced in our previous webinar, but I should mention that this is a framework for developing digital products in iterations, in which we validate ideas by building and measuring in short cycles. And this is something that we definitely need today. We need to minimize waste and reallocate our focus if needed, as we can't be unsure how markets will look tomorrow. And the third concept that we use in our work is full cycle product development. This is full cycle product development is an idea to split product development into the phases depending on which phase the product is on the market. So we distinguish between creating prototype, creating minimum viable product, achieving product market fit, and scaling a product. And today, especially prototyping and building minimum viable product is the proper approach to find new market fit, and that way to respond to a shrinking market, or to introduce new product to the market. In next slides, I will go through example application of those concepts, especially full cycle product development. And I will refer to a situation that we faced collaborating with our clients. So what is the situation? Our client had an existing product, but the client saw that on one hand, observed that some users, actually some user segments, are stopping to using the product, but on the other hand had some ideas how to change the situation, how to reach completely new user segments. But the question, of course, arises: which idea to follow, how to pick the right solution. What if the chosen solution will be wrong, and eventually how to deliver product updates or the new product quick enough. The first thing, the situation was that actually we were collaborating with that client sometime, and our agile development teams were able to quickly reorganize and change their focus. So this is a situation that we might expect a shift in the development teams from steady development of agreed features and developing long-term roadmap into very quick, creative, high-paced development. And thanks to the agility, the agile approach, this was possible in the case. So this is very important to follow the agile mindset and to work with agile development teams to be ready to adapt in such situation. The first step we took with the client was to conduct a brainstorming. In this case, the whole development team took part in a remote brainstorming session, and that concluded in many ideas that were incorporated into the next step. Then we organized the product discovery. This was already mentioned during our case with Allan. If we have question how to proceed with ideas, how to select some features to build, how to decide what's really needed, how to understand the product. The product discovery comes in hand. There are many options to follow. One considerable option in such a case is to follow a design sprint process. This is a specific 5-day process involving all the agile team members and the project sponsor and product owner. In our case, we decided to craft individual agenda for product discovery workshops and conduct 2-day workshops involving the client and the whole Scrum team. And we decided to use specific tools: business canvas, product persona, product canvas, and achieve a better understanding of the needs of the target group and the idea behind, the business idea behind. Then we created a product hypothesis and ran a remote story mapping session. This is yet another tool to prioritize the work on a new product. Following the product discovery workshop, we knew what to do. But then comes the question how to start updating and delivering product with minimum resources and risk. So getting back to full cycle product development, prototyping and building MVP is a method that we decided to use. Just because this is a method on very lean delivery, it's focused on essentials. The goal is to check if ideas that were planned during the brainstorming and then during the product discovery workshops will work on the market. Specific techniques that might be used, and we decided to use in this case, was developing technical spikes to check if the solution that we planned over the product discovery workshop is viable. We also decided to create landing pages to validate if what's the response on the market to the new ideas. Landing pages presenting the idea of our concept of the planned features. And third, the client decided to contact some small group of existing users, and we created prototypes that could be validated, presented, and we receive feedback about the solution. So to summarize, how we can respond to risk of shrinking market. It is essential to adapt our products quick enough, and it's faster than we used to think before. The first step is seeing problems and having some ideas. Second is the right process of making a choice and choosing essentials. We have the product discovery workshop for that. And the third step is to focus on very quick and rapid execution, delivering quickly with minimum cost to validate. And the right process of building, which is inspired by lean startup and full cycle development, along with the ability to execute in a proper pace, thanks to agile development teams, might be just the right response to a shrinking market today. And that's it for this topic. And now I think I can hand over to Romuald.
Yep, thank you, Jarek, for this. I'll take over screen. Thank you. May I just add that some of those tools are nicely described on our blog, so you can see more information there. And now let's move to risk number 5, so the interruption to the budget. And when it comes to the interruption to the budget, you have two choices. You can either minimize the likelihood of occurrence of this risk, or minimize the impact when it materializes, or you can, of course, try to do both. But first one is usually hard to do. It's hard to avoid the interruption to the budget, and usually it's beyond the influence of product owner or product management team. But the impact can be managed. How? Well, it already was said during this webinar that being lean and ready for interruption to come in almost any given time, well, is the answer. So we'll see an example here on a real life case study. We worked with one of the world's leading steel and mining companies. And the ultimate goal of this cooperation was to deliver a remaining useful life model for production facility, for production lines. And the RUL is defined as a time to next failure of any component of those production lines. The project was based on data delivered to Boldare by the client, and it contained of time series from production lines. Here we applied Agile approach to check if it was viable to invest in the big full-fledged solution. The question was, the main question was, is the data provided and produced by the production lines sufficient to continue to the modeling phase? And well, an example of how agile it was even that the go, no-go criteria for the second phase evolved during the first phase, as we discovered more during work. Well, the lean startup was discussed here and during previous webinars, so please refer there for detailed explanation. It's enough to say here that in order to validate the hypothesis at minimum cost, we focused on the biggest risk area, so the quality of input data. And during a couple of weeks, we built the test model and refined the data. We analyzed them, and we were able to validate the hypothesis. This build, measure, adapt approach allowed us to negatively validate the hypothesis and actually finish the project already after a couple of weeks of development. It saved thousands of dollars that otherwise would be spent if the project was planned in traditional manner, when usually you have all the project planned out, and actually the first phase would precede the second phase, but everybody would be trying, hard to go to the second phase. Here, thanks to Agile approach, thanks to really clear, defined success criteria, we were able to say that it's not worth continuing this work. Well, so Lean Startup allows you to better utilize your budgets from the start on. But how about protecting yourself from the effects of interruption to the budget when you already started? And here, once again, Scrum seems to be the answer. In this particular case, we didn't use pure Scrum due to highly exploratory nature of this project. But employing Scrum can let you prepare for sudden cut in financing. Well, how? Primarily by its most important feature of Scrum. So usable increment of product is delivered every sprint. It means that every roughly 2 weeks, depends on the project, you have a functional product that you can use. And depending, of course, on the phase of the development, if it's at the beginning or it's rather at the end, you can use it for user testing or even going live. Depending on the phase. Scrum is a lightweight framework, and you would need to fill it with tools such as mentioned before by Jarek. Well, our advice is apply Scrum mixed with Lean Startup approach, and you will always be ready to pause the development if something happens to the budget. But please mind that Scrum works best with projects where you are building a product with new features or technological improvements. For projects such as bug fixing or just support, there are some other methodologies such as Kanban that would fit better. And at this point, I have a question to Allan. Allan, did the Lean Startup and Scrum methodologies help to better manage the budget? And was it beneficial to you at all? If you could share, please.
Sure. I feel like by breaking the project up into steps, it gave us better control on how the product developed as we moved through it, as opposed to just doing one big project, with, parts up front and the remainder due upon completion. So I liked the process, and it gave us a lot more control, I felt like.
All right. Thank you, then. And now we will move to the next risk, number 6. And Jarek, the floor is yours.
Okay, let's jump into the last risk that we'll be mentioning today, and this is about our partner, our business partner, being unable to deliver. So, what if our partners face the problems that we listed above specifically? The questions we might ask ourselves is how to predict if our partners will stay reliable. This is especially important today as we can't be sure about the impact of the economy to our business partners. How to limit the impact if the service is interrupted or stopped. And how to shape the collaboration to make sure that the risk or impact is lowered. Again, we are in a situation that we are the partner in developing to other companies, and what we can do is to share our experience what we in collaboration with our clients do to make them more safe and ready to go. So I will present 5 rules that we propose to use. The first rule is to avoid vendor locking. Vendor locking in digital product development is in a situation when you use proprietary licensing, when you don't own the code, when you or your business partner use proprietary solutions or solutions that are not widely spread or have some licensing issues. The second rule is agile development with Scrum. Why this is important? Agile development with Scrum gives you control. So at any given time, you can decide to change priorities. And you are always concentrating on what's the most important at this moment. So if you think of collaboration with a business partner for developing a product, for example, for 6 months, then using the agile development approach with Scrum, you should be able to cut this in half and still receive more than half of the value, because you should receive delivered the most important features first. The third rule is continuous delivery. This is agile development practice. Continuous delivery assures that you receive a working product or part of the product every iteration. Specifically, working with Scrum, in our case, our clients can receive working, stable, usable part of the application every sprint, which is every 2 weeks. This limits the risk because our partners can stop the product development after sprint, and still they should have a usable and working part of the product. Rule number 4 is knowledge sharing. If we think about software development or digital product development outsourcing or collaboration with our clients, we should not think of delegating some black box. I think Beata mentioned today that empowering our communication is very crucial in collaboration, and this is also relevant to the risk of interruption of the service, because knowledge sharing ensures that you or your company has at least some knowledge about the product being developed and can take over or hand over the product to other vendor if needed. Specifically with some of our clients, we create teams mixed of members from our company and from our business partners. And this ensures that the knowledge and the information is flowing between the companies, and that gives lots of security to our clients. And the last rule, number 5, is the asset sharing. So by default, you can expect your business partner to share with you every asset that is being produced or you are working with your client on during the product development and the collaboration. This is especially relevant for the code base for the product. If you own the code base, then combined with other rules, you have not only the working product if you cut the development in half, but you also have the code base to continue the development yourself or with other vendor. Some alternatives. Of course, I should mention that to address the risk of interrupted service, you should consider having multiple business partners to deliver products. That means that probably if one fails, it's just a small part. Of course, you can also outsource only some non-crucial work. And eventually you can decide to stop outsourcing. This is also an alternative. However, I think by applying the 5 mentioned rules, it makes the collaboration more like transparent augmentation to your company rather than outsourcing black box, and this provides great value still, even if there's some risks. So my recommendation to assess or respond to that kind of risk is to validate how the 5 mentioned rules apply to your situation. If they are relevant to your situation, and if your business partners can incorporate them to the collaboration. You can ask specifically about the mentioned topics and discuss with your clients how you can make them a practice. And that's it. That was the last 6 risk we wanted to mention. Just to summarize, today we discussed in-house development 6 risks. First was in-house development team suddenly being unable to work. Then we jumped into the risk of remote working. We discussed the situation, what if management suddenly being unable to work? We analyzed how we can respond to a shrinking market. Also discussed how some mechanism we propose can be remedied to interruption to the budget, and finally explored 5 rules to apply to respond to a risk that our business partner is being unable to deliver. That's it from my side. Thank you, and now I think I will hand over to Karolina.
Thank you so much, Jarek. Let me just share the presentation quickly. Can I share the presentation? Yes, perfect. So thank you so much to the speakers. Thank you so much for staying with us to the end of the webinar. We've overrun just slightly, but now will be the time for the Q&A session. If you have some questions, now is the time to add them also to the questions tab on your right-hand side. You can also get in touch with us at hello@boldare.com if you don't feel like posting your question in public. If you enjoyed the session, we would like to invite you to the third part, which was mentioned at this webinar today. This webinar will be about managing distributed software development teams. You'll find out a lot more details about that. It's on Tuesday, 5th May at 2 p.m. Central Eastern Summer Time. So if you would like to attend this session, you would need to confirm your attendance via the Livestorm app. Unfortunately, your subscription is not automatic. You have to submit it for each session. Also, it would be fantastic if you could fill in a poll. It's also on the right-hand side. We would love to hear your feedback and your thoughts on the webinar. And now let me remind you of today's speakers. We had the pleasure of listening to Beata, Head of Product Design and Development, Jarosław Kroczek, Chief Technology Officer, Romuald Członkowski, Product Development Team Lead, and Allan Wilson, founder of the CRS. And now I give the floor to you guys with your questions. And the question with the most votes is, just one second, would be from Tom. What are your methods of building partnerships with clients, especially during the crisis? Who would like to talk about that?
I may try to give you just a quick answer, but as you may imagine, there's no quick answer to the entire topic, but what we believe in partnership is that we need to be flexible to the business needs. And this is how we support our clients in the crisis situation, because right now the dynamic situation for the business for them is even harder. So this is how the partnership is built, that we are able to answer very fast, very quickly, and efficiently to their business needs. So that is what I would focus on.
Thank you.
Karolina, I would just add to what Beata said, that it's not only responding to, let's say, business needs that change, that market shrunk, but in some cases our clients face a surge in usage of their applications, and that is great, but it sometimes also creates some problems, like for example application not being ready to scale up so fast. So we also then brainstorm with our clients how we can support them to quickly rebuild the application to serve to the surging demand as well.
Thank you, guys. Allan, there is one question for you. Was it hard for you to switch from waterfall to agile?
It was in the beginning. Honestly, I didn't really understand. I mean, I'd heard the terminology before. I knew it was a keyword and thought that I understood what it was. But it took me a little bit of working through it, and I'd really say it wasn't probably until I got through one full phase and maybe was starting the second phase that I really got it. And I understood why it was so powerful and why so many people liked it better. So I didn't get it in the very beginning, even though Boldare did a great job of explaining it. It's one of those things, at least for me, that just kind of working through it helped me to better understand why we were doing it that way and why it was so important.
Thank you, Allan. Next one will be, what is Boldare's greatest remote work challenge these days? What is Boldare's greatest remote work challenge these days? Guys from Boldare?
Okay, so let me jump in. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but on a short term, actually, we didn't eventually face any challenges that would hit us, because from both organizational and technical perspective, we were used to, at least partly, working remotely so far. I think where challenges come is more on the long term. So if the situation continues, then we need to consider the impact on the company culture. So we might need to change our mechanisms for building the company culture and keeping everyone on the same page, as we used to see ourselves in the office, at least from time to time, and we had all strong relations to each other, and that was very helpful to doing our work properly in terms of enhancing communication and then transparency. Of course, we needed to take many steps immediately after the lockdown was introduced. So immediately we started to monitoring the risks regarding the remote work and take special care to ensure transparency and communication. But I don't know, Beata or Romuald, if you can add something to that. It was too easy from my perspective.
Yeah. I think that wasn't a very big challenge, as you said, because we were already used to this kind of working. And the biggest challenge lies not in the company, but I think in our employees' homes. So dealing with, children also being there all the time and spouses working there as well. So I think the biggest challenge is for the people, to handle the situation at home while working rather than organizational from Boldare perspective. But we as a company also see that it is a challenge, and we provide a range of tools to help our colleagues, for example, psychological advice, or in some cases, shift in working hours so that developers who need that can work in the morning and work in the afternoon with some touch in between, etc., etc. So I think this is the area with most challenges.
Thank you so much, guys. I think, Allan, that would be also for you. What is your advice how to find an external software development partner, where to start looking? Maybe you can describe your journey.
Sure. We looked locally here in the market that we're in, and then we specifically went out and looked for development companies in the entire world. So we kind of had two places that we were looking from. We used locally referral and kind of word of mouth from other companies we'd worked with. On the global side of things, which is how we came across Boldare, we use the review sites a lot. And we basically shortlisted locally and kind of globally 3 companies that we liked on each side. And then I pulled a lot of our key team members together and basically kind of went through an interview process with each candidate. And then used a voting process internally on who we liked. And then we kind of came down to one local partner that we liked and one more global partner that we liked, Boldare being the global one. And then specifically what ended up making the big difference for us and having us pick Boldare was they were able to meet our moved timeline very well, and so their ability through their development process to move quickly specifically benefited us. And then secondarily, all of the tools that they kind of had, we felt like, and I specifically felt like, they understood our product a little bit better than the local company, and so it made us feel more comfortable with them as a choice, even though they were much geographically further away. So that was the process we went through.
Thank you so much, Allan. We overrun slightly, but I believe we have time for one last question. What was the biggest risk you've encountered when it comes to collaboration with your clients and how you tackled it? I believe this is directed towards Boldare. So what was the biggest risk, I guess, for us as Boldare and how we tackled it?
I guess it's always difficult to answer with a question which is what is the biggest risk, the biggest challenge, and we are all thinking of, okay, there were so many. So which one was the biggest one? I'd say that the risk that was the biggest for our clients was the same as for us. So the risk to the business and if they can handle the crisis situation, and if the business is still valid with their products for the users. So this is what we wanted to support them with. So for us, situation is if we can support the business right now. So even more focused to act quickly for the business change. Guys, would you like to add something?
My take on this, I mean, what was the biggest risk when it comes to collaboration? I would say we had the part of the process when starting a service. We would organize the discovery workshops, and the client would be remote, but we would bring all the team together to the office to sit down and start, thinking about the product, start working on it, understanding the business goals, and that was done in one place. So when the lockdown occurred, we had to develop a process how we can do that 100% remotely, and we had to do it fast because I was actually my case as well that we had already planned workshop on Thursday, and the lockdown came on Wednesday afternoon, so we just had a couple of hours to organize that online. But in the end, actually, it benefited the product because the following weeks were totally remote as well, and since we already started 100% remotely, we had the processes in place already from day one or even from day zero. So that was a good choice, and other services followed as well. And now we have a fully functioning remote process. So in the end, that was a good thing, and we can do it even we can do it on site or we can do it remote as well. It moved us forward, I think.
Thank you so much, guys. I believe this is all we have time for today. If you would like to attend the third part of the crash course, please go to Livestorm app and confirm your participation. Thank you so much once again to our speakers and to our participants for taking part, and hope to see you next week on Tuesday at 2 p.m. for the third and final part of the crash course. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.